everyone, my name is Floris Berg. I work at Utrecht University. I'm assistant professor of environmental philosophy and I'm a vegan. I would say therefore I'm a vegan, and I'll explain to you in this small talk. Today you are also vegan. That's great. You made it from carnivore to a vegan because today it's a completely vegan diet. I usually say there are two kinds of people. There are people who are vegans and there are people who are not yet vegan. And yet today you are vegan as well. So let me compliment you on that. And you can see how easy it is. It's not a big sacrifice. You won't starve from hunger, and you might even enjoy your lunch. So it's not a big sacrifice at all. On the other hand, eating meat is a big sacrifice. It's a huge sacrifice for the lives and suffering of the animals, and a sacrifice of future generations. That is my main point, which I'd like to make today. The message is, in order to be sure you get the message across, that sustainable development only makes sense if it starts with a completely plant-based diet. And it's a great honor to speak today here at Utrecht University, where we are experimenting with a completely vegan canteen. So it's maybe unique in the world, it's unique in the Netherlands, and let it be a first stepping stone towards a better place. Sustainable development is not only about theory, it's about practice. It's about how we live our daily lives. And I will show you today, I will argue that living on a plant-based diet is one of the ingredients of a sustainable lifestyle, of an ethical lifestyle. It's a positive message, not a negative message. That's what I'd like to say. But it's difficult. Why is it so difficult to go to a vegan diet? Because people are shifting the burden of responsibility. You can say there's a gridlock of responsibility for the negative aspects of factory farming. There are the consumers and there are the suppliers, supply and demand, and the consumers they point their finger to the suppliers, to the canteen, to the catering, to the supermarkets, and the others, the supermarkets and the canteens and the caterers, they point their fingers to the consumers. They say we just do what they want. So that's this gridlock. We have to get rid of that. And today this experiment here shows that it is possible to get out of this gridlock of responsibility. That we all together, the catering plus the consumers, together we make it happen. So it happens here today. Yes, we can. We are doing it here. So it is possible to get out of this gridlock of responsibility. This is an example of social innovation, what is happening here. So let it be an example of to other universities, and let it be an example of the future. This is the beginning. Don't let it stop here. This is Friday. This is Vegan Friday. From now on, let it be vegan every day. Okay, now I will explain the philosophy of veganism, because many people think that veganism is a kind of like a hobby or an option. I know it sounds weird, but that's probably what philosophy is for. Philosophy helps you to think about things which many people accept and to think it through, and maybe the outcome is that it is very contra-intuitive. Well, and one of these contra-intuitive things is that eating meat might not be the ethical thing to do. And if it's not the ethical thing to do, then it's no longer a hobby or a personal choice, but then it becomes a moral obligation to abstain from eating animal products. So it's not difficult. It's just because everyone does it, doesn't make it, is not enough an ethical justification. So what we, and I mean philosophers are doing, is they are looking for blind spots in our ethical systems. And a blind spot means something that we don't see, but we can see it if we would think about it. Like the idea of slavery. Slavery has been part of many societies through many ages, and nowadays we think it's completely immoral that people would hold slaves. And we cannot even imagine that there would be societies in which there are slaves. We think it completely immoral. So, but the people living in those times, there were hardly anyone addressing these issues. Most people accepted the status quo of slavery, of the institution of slavery. Well then, from now on, we have incorporated non-white peoples in our moral circle, and we think it's immoral that we would we would have slaves, and we would use other human beings as an instrument for ourselves. So that's a blind spot. From now on, looking with hindsight, we see how is it possible that people wouldn't see that, that they would have accepted that. So the same thing you could say about the rights of women. Now women have rights, but for a long time, for ages, women did not have any rights. Now we have included women in our moral circle. So the moral circle is expanding. And we include all people, we include all people of all gender. Even homosexuals have been included in our moral circle. 2001 the Netherlands was the first country to grant same-sex marriage. So it is possible that we expand our moral circle, but then what is the criterion in order to know which people or which beings are in the moral circle? And there comes in philosophy. We have to know what is the criterion for inclusion in the moral circle. And the answer is, or the best answer is, and we can argue about it, but the arguing has been done already for decades in philosophy, is that it is that being able to experience pain or pleasure. So the question is, according to Jerry Bentham, can they suffer? So the idea is that we should include all beings who can suffer in our moral circle. And then, so that's the one. We should expand our moral circle to all beings who can suffer, including non-human animals. Because if you wouldn't do that, it would be kind of unjustified discrimination. Like we think it's now unjustified to discriminate against people of a different gender. Then we have to get some general rule. Why would it be bad to harm other beings who can suffer? Well, here comes in another philosopher. This philosopher is John Stuart Mill in his book On Liberty, 1856. And the question is, what are the limits of what people can do? What is ethically allowed that people can do? And John Stuart Mill stated a very simple principle. And the principle is, you can do anything you want as long as you do not harm others. That's the only question. Anything goes as long as you do not harm others. So, and now if we put those two together, so who are the others? Others are all sentient beings. Others are all the beings who are able to suffer. Then everything is allowed as long as you do not harm other sentient beings. So ethical living means you can do anything you want without harming others. But the problem with eating animal products is that we know for 100% sure that other beings, other sentient beings are harmed in the process. So you are, that cannot be ethically justified according to this principle. So, and this is actually what is called liberalism. Liberalism means you have the liberty to do anything you want except when it's harming others. So that is the moral bottom line. And eating animal products means you are harming sentient beings, you are harming others. So if you want to know if you are living an ethical life, then it starts with a plant-based diet, which starts with not harming other sentient beings. So, let me wrap this up about veganism. Veganism has two arguments in favor for it. One, it's like a coin with two sides. On the one hand, there is the animal ethics. So eating animal products means you are harming those other animals. And let me be clear, it also includes dairy products, because dairy products also harm others, because all the animals in dairy production, they will all be slaughtered at the end. And in the products of this acquiring these dairy products, they are harmed as well. So not harming others means just going vegan, not going vegetarian. So that's one side of the coin, animal suffering. The other side of the coin is that eating animal products has a huge ecological impact. The ecological footprint of eating animal products is much bigger than eating a plant-based diet. And by having a large ecological footprint, that means that we are actually stealing from future generations. And stealing means we are harming future generations. Also, we are harming people in faraway places who are affected by the requirements of meat production, like deforestation. So, one of the easiest things to do to start living a more ethical life is adopting a vegan diet. And this is just a black and white choice. There's no in between. And I know this sounds hard, but it's like if you have like 100 slaves, and then you say, well, you know, I limit it, I go to 50 slaves. Are you then being a good slaveholder if you have reduced the number of slaves? Well, and having 50 slaves is just like being a vegetarian. And that, I know this sounds awful, and this is an awful comparison, but don't shoot the messenger. Ask the animals in question who are suffering. Ask what they are thinking, and just look at the evidence. So, if you want to clear your conscience, go vegan. So, to wrap up, today here at Utrecht University, we are all part of this experiment of having seducing people to a completely vegan diet. Today we are pioneers in ethics. We are pioneers in sustainability. We are pioneers in food. We are also pioneers in social innovation. A better world starts here today by adopting a vegan diet. A better world can start here today if this will lead to the first completely vegan university in the world. Today this can be the beginning of a better world, with not only the first vegan university in the world, but make this a stepping stone to a completely plant-based society. That the Netherlands will be the first completely plant-based society in the world. And that when people in 50 years look back, in the same way as that we now look back at the time that we had slaves, that we cannot believe it, that people did not see it. And that's where we're standing today, and we are part of that experience. So you can make a choice today. Go vegan. Thank you.